There are three major types of blood vessels: arteries, capillaries, and veins. So we'll start with the artery. Arteries generally, other than the pulmonary artery, carry oxygenated blood, um, and they're carrying it away from the heart. So their job is really to feed the body with all the oxygen that it needs, and also all the other nutrients it's required, particularly for exercise. We're thinking about that in terms of being able to then create energy to cause muscular contraction. The arteries branch off into smaller versions of arteries called arterioles. They then join the capillaries. So some key characteristics of the arteries. The same as what we'll see with veins, arteries have three layers, sorry. Tunica interna, tunica media, tunica externa. A major difference is that middle layer is much thicker in arteries, and that is the layer that's made up of muscle, involuntary muscle or smooth muscle as it were. That's what allows arteries to constrict and dilate. So these key things in order to redirect blood flow: vasoconstriction, narrowing of the artery or arteriole, letting less blood through so that blood will be forced into other routes, or vasodilation, where the artery gets wider and allows more blood in, which is crucial for our exercise and muscles. We want as much blood and therefore as much oxygen to come into that working muscle as possible. So vasodilation of the arterioles feeding our working muscles is crucial. They also need these thick, strong walls because blood within the artery is under very high pressure. Because it is coming directly from the heart, where that left ventricle has applied a large contraction, it's under high pressure, so the walls of the artery need to be able to cope with that. So the arteries branch off into arterioles. Those arterioles branch off into our capillary networks, with the capillaries surrounding the working muscle. So capillaries are crucial because they're the smallest blood vessel we have, and that's where we get gaseous exchange, the movement of oxygen in one direction and carbon dioxide in the other, coming from either the muscle or at the lungs with the alveoli. So the capillaries are made up of just one very thin layer, 1 cell thick. And that's important because that's going to allow the diffusion to occur. It also makes them pretty weak and less protected, so capillaries can be damaged, particularly in very high strenuous exercise, where pressure builds up in those capillaries. Capillaries can burst, and we see that with bloodshot eyes, nosebleeds, things like that in exercise. We use the example, I think we talked about World's Strongest Man. You often see that where they're trying to maintain very high loads for long periods of time. The importance of these dense capillary networks is that once that blood from the arterioles comes into the capillaries, it's funneled off in multiple different directions all at once. This reduces blood pressure massively, and it means that blood starts to move slowly through the capillary networks, really giving as much chance as possible for gaseous exchange to occur. Once we come out of that capillary network, the capillaries start to join together into venules, and they join together into veins. Veins being the blood vessel that then carries that deoxygenated blood back to the heart. Same basic structure as arteries in that we've got those three layers. The difference being that layer of muscle is much smaller in veins. The blood is under much lower pressure, so it doesn't have that driving force to get it through. So a key feature of the veins is the fact that they do have valves running through them. The valves being there to ensure that the blood continues to move in only one direction. Where we get faulty valves, we get blood starting to pool in the lower limbs, and that can cause issues such as varicose veins. So as blood comes through, it forces the blood ahead of it through a valve. Valve closed, blood can't move backwards, and as more blood comes through, it pushes it further on. During exercise, we also have the action of the muscles contracting, relaxing, squeezes those veins and forces the blood back up through the next valve towards the heart, and the action of the respiratory system and the vacuum it creates within the chest cavity creates almost a suction effect to start pulling that blood back up from the peripheries back towards the heart.